Welcome. Once people are seated, let's finish arriving by inviting everybody to take 3 deep breaths together. Ready? 1. And a second. And 1 more. Mike?
Good morning. My name is Mike Owens. I use the pronouns he and him, and I have the joy of being your worship associate this morning. In addition to myself, our minister, Reverend Gail Lindsay Mariner, and our music director, Lydia Madrick, are also in the service. We're also appreciative to the members of our tech team back at the back, Michael, Jim, and John, and to our office staff and our greeters, to all the people who showed up to help set up for the pot roast this morning ahead of time, and everybody else who helps to make this morning possible. We begin with our singing of the hymnal, or our hymn number 1 in the gray hymnal, "Let Nothing Evil Cross This Door."
Thank you. Please be seated. Our opening words this morning are from Reverend Edward Everett Hale, who wrote, "I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but I can still do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do." Mike?
We continue with our chalice lighting. I invite those of you who are watching the chalice there as we light ours here. Our words are adapted from words by Nelson Mandela. I have walked the long road to freedom. I have tried not to falter. I have made missteps along the way, but I have discovered the secret that after climbing a great hill, one only finds that there are many more hills to climb. I have taken a moment to rest here, to steal a view of the glorious vistas that surrounds me, to look back on the distance that I have come. But I can only rest for a moment, for with freedom comes responsibilities, and I dare not linger, for my long walk is not yet ended.
So, this particular Sunday, we are reflecting on celebrating democracy at a whole bunch of scales, at the national scale, at the local scale, and here at UU Santa Fe. And if you were here a month ago, you will remember we had a congregational meeting and we elected a new board of trustees. If you are a member of the Board of Trustees, will you please come forward? And will you make sure you have that little white slip of paper that's kind of tucked in the green envelope? Everybody else should get that out too. we have a reading shared between the new board and the congregation. All right, here they come. Not all of them, but the ones who are pretty much the ones who are here today. Roberta is around, but I bet she's out wrangling tables and hot dog roast elements, so we know she's here in spirit. So congregation, we begin. We, the members of this congregation, Board of Trustees,
We, the members of this Santa Fe's Board of Trustees, honor your gratitude for our investment in our community, your trust in our integrity and wisdom, your support of our leadership, and your enduring loyalty to the mission and vision of this church. We pledge to do what is within our power to make our stewardship of our shared future an experience of discovery, accomplishment, and growth.
and then all of us. Together, may we make this community a beacon of reason, compassion, and freedom, and a witness to the power of love and aspiration to make a better world. Thank you, friends, and thank you, board members. I know some of you recognize that. I could hear a little singing along. That's awesome. So, Friday was the 249th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And we have heard that next year's anniversary celebrations of this document are going to be a really big deal as part of the birthday party. But why wait? We can get the jump on the interpretation if we start right now. When I reread this document, it becomes clear that we need to be paying attention to what it says. As a faith tradition that affirms and promotes the right of conscience and the use of democratic process in our congregations and in society at large as one of our core principles, and as a tradition which counts two of the architects of this document, two of the committee of five who composed the Declaration, as our religious ancestors. That would be John Adams, who is a member of the Quincy Unitarian Church, and Thomas Jefferson, who, while he never joined a Unitarian congregation, is known to have written to Adams saying, "I expect by the end of my lifetime, all young men in this nation will be Unitarian. So that's he wasn't right on that. We're still working on it, but it's an indication of his philosophy. And then, of course, 3 of the signers, those 2 plus Benjamin Rush, who was a Universalist, come from our lineage. So it seems to me an apt topic for a Sunday morning. This document is part of our patrimony as Americans, and yet all too often we take it for granted. Not only are we unable to defend the world-changing ideas it articulates, often we don't even know what it says. It is a scant 1,337 words, and I am going to read it to you now. Please listen with your full attention. I would say read along, but this is way too fine print. This is a facsimile copy printed by the printing press at the Palace of the Governors from the draft that they received at somewhere along the line. So this is as close to the real thing as we're going to get in terms of embossed and engrossed and all of those things. So here we go. In Congress, July 4, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitled them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident: that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That when any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to effect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be challenged for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience has shewn that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let these facts be submitted to a candid world. He has refused his assent to laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation till his assent shall be obtained, and when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time, after such dissolutions, to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers incapable of annihilation have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions from within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. He has kept among us, in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretend legislation. For quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefit of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and a fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with the power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun, with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained against our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the execution of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren? We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They, too, have been deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. We must, therefore, acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them, as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of a right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have the full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for support of this declaration, with firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
That's a tough act to follow. Each Sunday, we place 4 stones in our chalice to help us remember the future we are working for. The mountain-shaped stone prompts us to imagine a world where this place where we gather, called in Tewa Ogapoge, is cared for joyfully by the descendants of the ancestral occupants, together with all of us who have come to love it and dwell in it. The geode inspires us to imagine a world where peace is endemic and war is a thing of the distant past, understood to be as an acute and deplorable failure of imagination. The ancient fossil-studded stone helps us to imagine a world thriving in the midst of climate change, a world where human participation contributes to a biosphere that is vibrant, diverse, and alive. The layered stone asks us to imagine that the vein of quartz that divides it actually is what holds it together. May it help us imagine a future when the differences between us are understood as boundaries that connect us. We honor those boundaries and our differences and use democratic processes to ensure that all of us thrive. These dreams of respect and peace, of a healthy planet and a robust democracy, become realities when we and other good-hearted people around the world work together to unravel racism, mend generational patterns of violence, fight for democracy, and learn to live peacefully and regeneratively on our planet. May we find joy and meaning in these struggles.
So we set aside a time each Sunday morning for the sharing of the sorrows and joys that shape our lives. We know that sorrows shared are easier to bear, and that joys shared are multiplied. So a heavy heart, this is a sorrow. A heavy heart at the Guadalupe River's overflow in Texas, and the loss and missing loved ones. Our hearts reach out in connection. Dominique writes, our best wishes to His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who is turning 90 today. May his country, Tibet, be forever with us. Concern, another prayer of concern from Mike for the people affected by the flooding in Texas. And then Joan Bellamy writes, on the 4th of July, I had the great joy of seeing my Canadian husband, Jim, become one of the 138 new citizens in New Mexico from 32 countries, including 2 Canadians. Yay! Deb Holland gave an inspiring address which brought a tear to many eyes, including hers. If you say hello to Jim, just be aware he is still adjusting, says his beloved. Please hold the family of Laura Bank in your hearts. She was a dear friend and shall be missed. This is from Karen Soller. This week, Jean Farnham, Ellie Briggs, Phyllis Arlo, and Anne Urbanski, and are they all here? I think most of them are, yes. Celebrate their birthdays. Happy birthday to all. And then, as ever, we are blessed by the presence of guests and visitors in our midst. If you are feeling brave, you are welcome to go ahead and wave. If not, it doesn't guarantee that we won't come and say hello to you after the service. So we are welcoming Kelly Gilbert and Phil Stauffer and Nancy Northrup and Anne-Marie Silva and Mark Neferi. Welcome all. We are glad you are here. All right. Would you put one, if we have one more candle, would you like one more candle for all of the sorrows and joys that we carry in our hearts as yet unspoken? Then we're going to sing Spirit of Life. It's 123 in the Gray Book if you need the words. Otherwise, feel free just to follow along. Resting now on the echoes of the music, let us move into a time of quiet and contemplation. I invite you to close your eyes if that is comfortable for you, to take a deep breath and to allow your body to relax. Breathe and let your thoughts drift. Breathe. And let your heart soften and open. Breathe. And feel it expand until it can cradle all of the joys and the sorrows, all of the contradictions and complexity, all of the anxiety and worry and joy and bliss that are simultaneously part of our being human here together. Breathe. And as we rest together in the quiet, I invite you to become aware of the people around you and of the truth that you do not have to carry those sorrows and joys, the anguish or the confusion, the complexities of being human by yourself. We are together here in community. And so I invite us all here in Fogelson Hall and watching online to simply sit together and breathe together and become aware that we are one people, vastly complicated and diverse, but one where it counts.
For this next bit, I require the audience to participate. It's going to be difficult. You have to have a speaking part. Your speaking part, after I read something that is hard to do, is to say, "Do it anyway." Let's try it. Do it anyway. Oh, this is going to be perfect. All right, here we go. Love is hard.
Do it anyway.
Compassion is hard.
Do it anyway.
Admitting when we are wrong is hard.
Do it anyway.
Atoning when we do wrong is hard.
Do it anyway.
Forgiving is hard.
Do it anyway.
Caring for one another is hard.
Do it anyway.
Welcoming the stranger, the different, and the other is hard.
Do it anyway.
Caring for the earth is hard.
Do it anyway.
Living with future generations in mind is hard.
Do it anyway.
Listening is hard.
Do it anyway.
Speaking truthfully is hard.
Do it anyway.
Acting together is hard.
Do it anyway.
Compromising is hard. Being fair is hard. Doing things peacefully is hard. Democracy is hard.
Thank you, Mike, for writing the litany as well as for leading it. So the homily is titled, Democracy is Hard, Do It Anyway. Unitarian Universalism is a democratic polity. That means we do all of our work at the congregational level, the regional level, and at the national level using assorted flavors of democratic process. In many ways, it was actually the lived experience of democratic process of the various faith communities in the colonies, which gave our forebears the confidence that they could, in fact, rule themselves, because they had been doing it for years in their congregation and in their townships and in their cities. So the Declaration of Independence is an interesting window into the thinking of our democratic religious ancestors, as well as into the thinking of our founding fathers. Now, I have claimed that democracy is hard work. Much of that work, much of that difficult work, is outlined in the Declaration itself. What is the hard work required? Well, too often, we take our democracy for granted and shirk the responsibilities that it requires. We expect freedom to be easy, and we fail to see the vigilance and continuous support that it requires, and we neglect the education and civic participation needed to ensure the equality of all participants. Democracy is hard because we have to share the work. No one person or one group can do it by themselves. If we examine the Declaration, and I've got a bunch of books up here. The one that I really liked when I read it for this is this one. It's called Our Declaration, a reading of the Declaration of Independence in Defense of Equality. It's by Danielle Allen, and she is doing a Harvard X course using much of the same content, and that's free and online. Harvard's launching a whole series of free civics courses to educate the populace. Yay! As a Harvard Divinity School graduate, I get to be proud of my alma mater there. So, one of the things that's true, the first challenge which the authors of the Declaration of Independence assert had actually already been accomplished at the time of the Declaration's writing, was persuading the citizens of 13 very independent and often fractious colonies that they were, in fact, one people, right? They had to shift their core identity from being 13 states that debated and fought and interacted and cooperated and sometimes didn't cooperate, to being one people. Crafting a shared identity and a shared sense of purpose out of 13 colonies was a significant challenge. And you know how they did it? It required years of meetings, hours of conversation, committees, and hundreds of letters. Representatives of the colonies met and talked. They asked after one another's well-being, and after many encounters, they came to understand that they were stronger and better off when they actually worked together. We inherit that conception of being one people, which they identified and named. But we sometimes forget that the unity they created is fragile, and it is in need of constant maintenance, or it will fray, fracture, and polarize. Sustaining our unity, sustaining our shared identity as Americans requires our continuous participation in the shared life of our communities, our cities, our states, our counties, and our nation. It takes effort. You have to read the news. You have to listen. You have to write letters to the editor and be in conversation with stakeholders. Every time that we are making decisions about our shared future. Democracy is hard in part because we, the people, are the decision makers, and because we have to do the work ourselves. Now, because democracy requires many people coming to agreement before acting, people participating in democratic governance have to be constantly looking ahead and sorting through vast amounts of information in order to determine the actual, what the Declaration calls the course of human events, right? You have to look far enough forward and put all the pieces together so that you can understand what is likely to be happening next. And the way we do this in a democracy requires paying attention to all the many groups and individuals that are part of the whole that is the we, the people, the one people, and then synthesizing that information to figure out what's going on. So in order to build that case in the center, those 13 points against King George, the members of the congregation, the members of the Congress, the Colonial Congress, didn't just talk to their friends. They didn't just assume that the people sitting in the room all knew what was going on and had the complete story. They actually sent runners out to all the colonies to gather information and to put advertisements in the newspapers and the broadsides and the almanacs, soliciting letters from people telling about their interactions with the British troops and the British people. No one's voice was too small. And it was only by talking to one another across those 13 colonies in the days before the internet and the telephone and the cell phone, it was only through those letters that they were able to compile that set of facts that are the accusations they level against King George. In the process of governing ourselves, foresight and participation are still needed. We're supposed to give the feedback to our government so that it actually represents us, so that it can better do what is meant to do. And that's hard because we may have to say unpopular things and face uncomfortable truths and then do uncomfortable stuff in response. In order to change our government and our situation, we might have to change ourselves. And that's hard. The Declaration of Independence itself notes that people are creatures of habit, wont to suffer under evil until the suffering becomes unbearable. We will put up with inappropriate behavior and poor structures until we can bear it no longer. It takes a lot of harm to get human beings over the threshold to where we are willing to engage in a struggle in order to change things. And change is hard. Because the Declaration of Independence is about establishing a government, not just any government, but a very particular kind of government, a government that supports freedom and equality of its members. Coercion is not an acceptable way of governing or creating change, right? If you're free, that means nobody's oppressing you. If you're equal, it means you need to be engaged as peers. Coercion will not accomplish that, and so our government has to move in a different way. The Declaration of Independence models how we do that, okay? It says we can do all of this. We can create a new nation. We can claim our status as equal states in relation to all the other states in the world. We can enable and empower new government for ourselves simply with the use of words. The use of words. If you ever feel there's a lot of talking in running a congregation or a business or a community, if you've ever sat in on city council or down at the legislature, you know what we have inherited is a way of creating community and governing ourselves by talking. Just so you know. It is slow. The process of discerning what changes need to happen, arriving at words that accurately express these ideas, agreeing on the words, building support for the ideas expressed in the words, and publishing the words is slow. It requires arduous process, long repeated conversations, many, many amendments and formal documents, and votes. Getting agreement between people with diverse needs and opinions is hard. And it is essential, because without it, democracy falls apart. And then, after we decide that something needs to be different, and we've agreed on how it needs to be different, and we've written it down and we've voted on it, then we, the people, the citizens, need to follow through. And if you thought the first part was hard, living into the commitments we make, actually scripting the ways we will need to be different in order to make the reality we've legislated with our worlds real and doable and palatable, and bringing the rest of community with us, that's the hardest of all. There isn't a single piece of democracy that is efficient. There isn't a single element of it that is easy. As soon as we get one thing accomplished, guess what? We're going to have to tend to something else. So why should we bother? If democracy is hard, why should we do it? Well, according to the Declaration of Independence, it's the only way that all of us can even begin to achieve what we want. According to the Declaration, the goal of our democracy is to provide a state in which all people are free and equal participants, who have equal access to the political tools they need to act together to pursue life, liberty, and happiness for all of us. The only legitimate purpose for government, it says, is to provide for its citizens those three things: life, liberty, and the opportunity to pursue happiness. And since only individual people can know what makes them happy, then all the people have to participate in the government. Hence, democracy, when free and equal people work together to govern themselves. Now, there are other options out there. Democracy is not the only one. You know, there's monarchy, there's oligarchy, there's fascism, there's totalitarianism, there's anarchy. And all of these will provide life, liberty, and happiness, but only to a very few, at the expense of the freedom and well-being of the rest. Our forebears had a choice. And so do we. The Declaration of Independence established our nation, and in its crafting, modeled the processes needed to achieve its promises and pass them on. Democracy is hard work. But the fruits of that labor, the freedom, the equality, and the right to work toward our own happiness are worth the effort. I want to close with words from a 1758 almanac published by Nathaniel Ames. He writes, "America is a subject which daily becomes more and more interesting. I shall therefore fill these pages with a word upon its past, present, and future state." And then he does that. At the end he says, "O ye unborn inhabitants of America, should this page escape the destined conflagration at year's end, and these alphabetical letters remain legible, when your eyes behold the sun after he has rolled the season round for 2 or 3 centuries more, you will know that in Anno Domini 1758, we dreamed of your times." Democracy was hard. It is hard. They were up to the challenge. Are we? All right, let's see. First Sunday giving. So I'm going to do the spiel about the green envelopes. Come on up. There are green envelopes on the chairs. You were invited to bring a bill of whatever denomination you want. And to insert it here for the support of the Food Depot, who we are going to hear about right now. Kirsten. Let me get this out of the way.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kirsten Hansen, and in this space, I'm best known as the daughter of Elizabeth Swope, the woman who feeds us all. The rest of the time, I spend my working life trying to make sure that our neighbors across New Mexico have access to the nutrition they need to address severe health issues. And so as I move in those circles, it's been a rough couple of months or 6 months, and it's going to be a rough few years. And in those times when we're putting our heads down and just doing the work, we always look for our co-conspirators, we look for our partners in crime, and we look for people who can help us strategize, help us frame what's going on, and most importantly, give us hope and a path forward. And in that spirit, I would like to invite Jill Dixon of the Food Depot into our space this morning, because she really is someone who can help us strategize, to frame what's happening, and to help us all chart a course forward. So with that, Jill Dixon of the Food Depot.
Thank you. I don't love microphones. I usually just holler like the school teacher that I was. Thank you so much for welcoming me today. I am Jill Dixon. I'm the executive director of the Food Depot. I've been in food banking for 13 years. I'm so touched by today's experience. Thank you. My heart has been incredibly heavy. My job is to stay composed, right? But I'm not, because the cuts to SNAP alone will take away 9 billion meals from human beings in our country. And it's not okay. And we have to stand up and say that it's not okay. The Food Depot believes that access to nutritious food is a human right. And I still believe, no matter how hard last week was, and how hard the road ahead is, that human beings in community with each other still believe in feeding each other. And we still believe in keeping each other alive, because fundamentally that's what we are, social animals trying to survive. I still believe that we all want that, all rhetoric aside, and I believe that we want to do hard things anyway. And sure, a part of me wanted to lay down and sit in my garden today instead of coming here and just wallow in my sorrow. but we do it anyway. So I washed my hair and I got my kid into some not so clean clothes, and we came up here with her bed head after a sleepover, and we're gonna do it anyway. If you are looking for a place to take the next step and do it anyway, the Food Depot can be that place. Filling those green envelopes is wonderful. We can stretch every dollar to provide 4 meals. We provide food at 150 locations every single month across 9 counties, 26,000 square miles, impacting the lives of over 40,000 people. We don't ask questions. We don't make people prove that they need it. If you're hungry, and we feed you through a network of over 100 partnerships with nonprofits, community organizations, municipalities, and other human beings. There's a woman out in Chimayo who uses her own SNAP benefits to make sandwiches for homeless folks in her community. She's raising her grandchildren because she has a daughter who struggles with substance abuse. And on Wednesday, when I went to get into good trouble with Kirsten, the gentleman at the counter at Iconic Red shoved a drink across the counter to me and said, "Thank you." And I said, "No, thank you. I need this hit. This caffeine's going to be good stuff." And he said, "No, for this." And I was wearing my shirt, and he said, "I don't think you know how many times you've fed me." I was living on tuna because I could feed it to myself and my cat. Until I learned about your services. And I can't tell you how many times that was the difference between me just eating tuna or not eating at all. That's why we're here. So please fill your envelopes, but also come volunteer. Because there's no greater testimony than a person who's seen the work. I heard my daughter on the phone with a friend the other day who'd come to help pack produce into little netted bags. And they stood in the warehouse and they counted to 10 and they put produce in little netted bags. And she said to her friend in the back seat of the car on the way home, "You know what the really cool part is, though? When you come back and you put those bags into someone's car." So I would encourage us all to take the next step and do it anyway. Put the money in the envelope, but come volunteer. And when you come volunteer, find your way to a food distribution. And then once you do, take the stories of what you saw to everyone else you know. These are not people who are not working. They are not waiting and accepting handouts. They are not wanting to not be able to choose their own food. They just want someone to help them through this moment. So please come join us and be part of the movement to create food security no matter what policy dictates, and eventually we will turn that tide together. Thank you.
All right. So, today is the beginning of what the Interfaith Leadership Alliance calls a Five Alive program. And we are the challenge congregation. The goal with the Five Alive is to get every congregation in the Interfaith Leadership Alliance to donate $5 for every member in their congregation. And I want to go to my next ILA meeting and say, guys, this is how much we raised on a Sunday morning with this many people, about 110, I think, in the room. Top that. And if you want to do something else this morning, there are thank you notes out on the table or on the counter in the foyer on this side. There are thank you notes to our legislators who voted back during the session in anticipation of this moment, an extra $10 million for 3 years in a row in order to help stop the gaps that were bound to emerge. So write a thank you note, make a donation, and we'll talk to our folks in social justice about organizing a field trip to help. The money in the envelope is for the Food Depot. Any other money that you feel like putting in the baskets goes to support the committees and the groups that do the work of this congregation. Thank you. The chalice has gone out.
The words for extinguishing our chalice are adapted from Alice Walker. Love is not concerned with whom you pray or where you slept the night you ran away from home. Love is concerned that the beating of your heart should kill no one. Listen to love.
Would you reach out and join hands with someone seated near you? And would you repeat after me? May love and skill be in our hands. May love and courage fill our hearts. May love and wisdom light our minds. May love flow through us and walk among us. As we live our lives and work to heal our world. Amen, shalom, namaste, blessed be. Assalamu alaikum, ashe, aho. All right, now I have two instructions before, three. If you have
Thank you for joining us today, friends.
kind of in the end of the foyer. It's also our hot dog roast. If you're staying for the hot dog roast, make your way to the fellowship hall or the courtyard and have a seat at a table. And more instructions, I'm sure, will be forthcoming. And then third, please turn and greet your neighbors. Have a
Thank you for joining us today, friends. We hope that you enjoyed today's service. Please take a little time and explore our website and visit our online welcome table if you'd like to know more about us. Otherwise, we'll see you next Sunday morning. Stay in touch and be well.